We now have a generation that believes everything we did by colonizing. Yes, it is true. They think everything about colonization was wrong. It wasn't. There were some terrible things and there were some good things to come out of it.
Listen, white supremacists lie like they breathe. They'll rather tell a lie than educate themselves with the truth, because the truth will destroy every illusion and delusion of superiority and lead to their mental breakdown.
And, you know, I think today we say slavery is wrong, but then you can look back at history and lots of things today, applying today's values, we would disagree with. But it's history, it's a matter of fact. So you can't be embarrassed by a matter of fact.
You decimated cultures. You erased religious practices and languages. White people came in, stole, and never looked back. And let me just remind you who the colonizers were. It was the French, it was the Dutch, it was the English, the Spanish, and the Portuguese. Because some people like to leave those motherfuckers out too. You want to talk about sanitization where you were living with animals, piss, and shit.
The beginning of this video is a good example on why white people, or the colonizers, or the white supremacists, or the people who gave such a hard time to black people need to pay reparations. Because the lack of education, the lack of shame or guilt comes from the continuous sugarcoating of what colonialism had, the effects that colonialism had on black people and the people it colonized. Because if someone is going to go to live television and say that there were benefits that came from colonialism, and people are sitting down listening to, and they're actually supporting her and what she's saying, that means that the history books have done what they were intended to do to the people who are the descendants of the people who colonized others. Because you cannot speak as in a certain manner, like the way she is speaking, with so much confidence and gusto, if you're not comfortable with what your books have taught you, because that is not the correct thing. That is not what actually happened. And even if you helped us with education, which really you didn't, because there already existing education, it just wasn't the British education or the American education. That doesn't mean the education that we had was not right. Even with religion, we worshipped our own gods. Us worshipping something that you don't like, or doing things that you don't like, doesn't mean that now because you brought it and forced it onto us that you helped us. That doesn't even make sense. But before I get too much into this, let's hear what other white people have to say, and the disillusion of how this topic is still something that we are fighting over, because the books have literally done what they were intended to do. But thank God for media, because now we can speak openly about our truths. I am here, I can speak openly about my truth as a black person, because as in our country, we were also colonized, and it still had a very, very major toll on us. The effects are still living with us even now. That is not something that you can just roll over and say, oh, you know, there were just bad things that happened, but there were good things too. No one asked for your good things. You were living happily, peacefully, all by ourselves. We didn't ask you to come. You came, you forced us to do things that you wanted us to do, and then you're still benefiting from our resources. But anyway, let's dive into these videos, and then we'll come back and talk much deeper about it. So see you shortly.
We now have a generation that believes everything we did by colonizing. Yes, it is true. They think everything about colonization was wrong. It wasn't. There were some terrible things and there were some good things to come out of it. And that is about properly acknowledging your past.
Education.
Yes, completely.
Sanitation.
Transportation.
Yeah. There was so much that we brought to communities.
But you see, you're typical of what we're talking about.
No, I'm saying that colonization, the empire was wrong. It was wrong, full stop. That's, you know, the things that Britain might have done.
But that's very much through your modern sensibilities, you might say that, because we wouldn't now routinely go into other countries.
It was a profoundly racist set of basically invasions of other people, where we subjugated people to our rule and sort of made them work for us. It was completely
made their countries work.
But imagine yourself in the shoes of a 13-year-old boy hearing you say that.
Yeah. right?
Yeah.
What do they then? How do they then carry that through life?
Well,
in terms of who I am as a Brit.
But it's not about.
We had racist ancestors.
Say it,
But Bev.
but I'm saying that we hear much more of that than we do about the benefits of that period of time.
Well, because I don't think there were benefits. I think that we have to be completely.
Of course there were.
So you benefits to us.
I don't think there were.
There were benefits to
A lot of those countries did not, Jonathan, those countries,
it absolutely does.
Those countries did not have money. They did not have the creativity. They did not have people
That's
in
outrageous
positions
thing
of
to say.
power
Of course they
to
had
do this.
creativity
No,
in
they
those
didn't.
countries. They just didn't live like Britain did. It doesn't make it worse. It just makes it different.
So it's okay to live without education, and it's okay to live without a transportation system, is it?
They did have education. It just wasn't our education system. They had language. It wasn't our language.
This cultural
Medicine we brought to
precisely what we have.
We have.
Yes.
I don't know. Look, I don't know why we're even.
Carol Malone, bring your ass to the front so I can educate the uneducated. Because too often, ignorant white women feel like they know how it goes when it comes to colonization, even though they don't even come from a country that was colonized. You say that there was benefits to colonization. Well, reel them off. Reel them off. What were the benefits to colonization to only benefit white people? You raped, pillaged, and stole. You decimated cultures. You erased religious practices and languages. White people came in, stole, and never looked back. And let me just remind you who the colonizers were. It was the French, it was the Dutch, it was the English, the Spanish, and the Portuguese. Because some people like to leave those motherfuckers out too. You want to talk about sanitization where you were living with animals, piss, and shit. You brought diseases that nearly wiped out civilizations, Carol. You people were nasty. Where do you think the Bibles of the scrolls came from, Carol? Because it weren't Bumbleclaw, England, I'll tell you that. Where do you think mathematics originated in, Carol? It was Baghdad, the same country that you people bomb. Even till this day, Carol, you people won't let other countries be great. Why are you still in Africa, Carol? Why won't you let the people them have their factories, Carol? Yeah, I'm chatting to you. Why don't you give back the land that white people stole from the Aborigines, Carol? Why don't white people give back the American Indians' land, Carol? Because what? The children of the blood clot colonizers benefit. Yeah? You people, Carol, because I'm chatting to you and your kind. You people go into other people's countries, steal gold, steal minerals, steal oil, and then turn around and tell other countries, oh, we're helping you out. We're giving you democracy. When they didn't ask for that shit. What you people do is go into other people's countries, start coups, and cause famine and death and enslavement. That is what you do. As much as we don't like it, our histories are interwoven together. You understand? And white people will never live this shit down until you make it right. Because in 2015, you stopped paying slave owners. You understand? Talking about, oh, well, the little white boys and the little white girls are going to feel guilty. Yes, they should feel guilty so they don't follow in the footsteps of their predecessors. It's okay for you to bang on about World War II and World War I and what you did, but when we talk about slavery and colonization, let's just forget it. Let's just leave it. Oh, that's not a conversation because you're going to make white people feel guilty. So what I suggest you do is get a stronger prescription for your glasses, put down your Biff and Chip books, and actually go to the library and look at what colonization meant for the world. Because as much as you'd like it to be true, Britain is not the hero in this story.
No country should ever be embarrassed about its past. We're not the only country that did it. And also the people, and this is, I have a degree in history, and this is based on historical fact, the enslavement was done in Africa by Africans. More slaves are actually sold to the Middle East from West Africa than to the colonies.
Yeah, I guess they were working on plantations run by Brits, though. The demand.
I'm not justifying slavery at all, but And, you know, I think today we say slavery is wrong, but then you can look back at history and lots of things today, applying today's values, we would disagree with. But it is history, it's a matter of fact. So you can't be embarrassed by a matter of fact.
I'm not surprised that in 2025 there are white people saying colonization was a good thing. Listen, white supremacists lie like they breathe. They'll rather tell a lie than educate themselves with the truth, because the truth will destroy every illusion and delusion of superiority and lead to their mental breakdown. So when the unwashed, unmoisturized, and unseasoned have the caucasity to say to us that colonization was good, yeah, that is peak white ignorance. What utterly preposterous assertions to make. Every word said by Carol Malone and this lady in the clip are all lies, shamelessly obtuse and downright racist. Let's use African nations as an example. The view of African nations as backwards, not having written language or educational systems, being technologically unadvanced, or that they were not regulated by law and order, not having transportation, etc., etc., are all false, deliberately criminal, and rooted in white supremacy. Education, native writing systems to West, East, Southern, and North Africa existed on the African continent long before the white man ever stepped foot there. The Nsibidi alphabet native to South Nigeria, the Gaze alphabet native to the Horn of Africa, the Egyptian hieroglyphs, or the Meroitic alphabet native to the Kingdom of Kush, Sudan, for which there's evidence it is the source of the Phoenician alphabet which forms the modern-day alphabet used by the West. Yeah, we gave you that. Transportation? Have you never heard of the Trans-Saharan trade route, or all of the trade routes from one end of the African continent to the other, or the historical evidence that Africans sailed to North America, South America, Asia, the Middle East, Mediterranean, and Europe, establishing international trade routes long before the Europeans? How do you think we did that, huh? Swinging from tree to tree across oceans? Listen, a little bit of critical thinking can go a long way. Yeah, Africans got to the Americas before Columbus. Sanitation? Hell no. We are not taking points from a people that can't even be bothered to wash their own legs and who think that showering with a sponge is unhealthy. No creativity? The Nok people of Nigeria are credited with developing the Iron Age as far back as 6-7 BC. Yeah. And the Haya people in Tanzania are credited with developing steel as far back as 2,000 years ago. No money? Then why is the West built on the exploitation of the natural, mineral, and human resources of African nations?
You cannot discover a place that already has people living there. To the guy who said Africa was discovered by Europeans, let me teach you something. You don't discover a place where millions of people already lived, traded, built kingdoms, and developed complex systems long before Europeans touched African soil. When Vasco da Gama arrived in 1497, he didn't find wilderness. He found cities. He found the Swahili coast, Kilwa, Mombasa, Mapungubwe, civilizations trading with India and China centuries earlier. Only thing Europe discovered was its own greed. You didn't discover Africa. You invaded it. You renamed it. You redrew the borders. You enslaved and colonized. That doesn't sound like discovery. It sounds like theft. Why do we still believe this lie? Because history is taught from the perspective of the thief, not the victim. And that is why your textbooks lie.
It's diabolical to hear that the presenter who was with Carol Malone or whatever her name is saying that, imagine a 13-year-old boy hearing all these things that happened to colonialism. They should hear about it. They should carry the guilt with themselves so that they can learn not to repeat what their predecessors did. They should hear what their parents and the parents of their parents did, and even what their parents are still doing right now. They should learn that the things that were done or was done or are still being done are not right. They should live with it, because we know that black people teach their kids from a very young age how to survive with their black skin. Because having a black skin in general is frowned upon, especially in the UK and America. Because how can you have a black skin and live openly and happily? That is very frowned upon. You have to teach your kids how to stay in certain places, how to come back home at certain times, how not to wear hoods at night, how not to jog while covering their faces or heads with the hooded sweaters, how not or how to act when they are approached by a police officer, how to be very calm even when they are being shouted at by white people, the Karens and the police officers and any other people who have the white skin or white supremacists. This is something that black children are taught. So why are we talking about your white child being taught about this? They're not going to lose their lives. That burden is carried by black kids as they're growing up. Your kid just has to know that that happened, you should not repeat it. That is not hard. You see, this is now the problem, not understanding or still seeing yourself as the center of attention, as the main people. Like, we should care about your kids because our kids don't matter. We should care about what your kid will feel guilty about, but not what a black kid has to live with. You see, same thing about education, lack of correct education, learning from the colonizers and not from the people who are hurt by colonialism. Learning from the books that were written by the heroes of that time brings that kind of a disassociation between reality and figment. And he also says that why should that generation that didn't colonize pay compensation for the people who didn't suffer from it? Why are we still having white kids get the money that was stolen from Africans? Why is that? Why are there white people who are still enjoying the benefits of colonialism, but there are black people who aren't enjoying those things? So that is a very funny question when you ask why reparations should be paid to people who didn't actually go through the slavery, while your kids are enjoying the fruits of slavery. They need to pay up too. They need to pay up because they're enjoying from the sweat and the blood and the tears and the deaths of our ancestors. So why shouldn't they pay? I don't understand. Like, that shouldn't be a point of discussion anymore. Saying such things, it doesn't make sense because we are also living with those effects of what they had to go through. Because that is trauma that is passed down through generations, but of course they can't understand because they are not black. And we did not ask for what they're saying they give to us. And mind you, they're forgetting that we did have civilizations before they came here. We did have kings and queens, and we used to have education. We used to have ways that we made judgments. We used to have ways that we were worshipping. We used to have ways that we were doing things. Literally, mathematics came from the Middle East. They still don't know how the pyramids were made. That was done by freaking black people. That was done by Africans. But they will not say that specific part. They are not going to say that specific part because that will bring a whole set of other questions. And celebrating colonialism disrespects the suffering of millions. It is a legacy of oppression and pride in colonization. That means pride in systematic racism and systematic injustice. White people continuously saying that they are proud of what happened and black people didn't build America and black people didn't do this and white people helped a lot. That goes down to even their kids. That is learned by the kids of their kids. And that's why we're still having white people who, when black people talk about racism, they're always ready to stand up and fight and start saying, no, you deserve nothing, you don't deserve anything, you are not supposed to be paid for anything, because there's such a big gap in the lack of education, because these are things that exist. There are books that are written by black people who have actually learned, and even white people who have actually gone and done a deep dive on what actually happened during the colonial rule. So there are books that are written in the correct manner, but obviously what is being taken to school is what was written by the colonialists. So they don't get a point where they learn about the effects and the disgusting things they used to do to black people. So I would advise that if you are a black person who has white people around you, let them learn, let them realize, let them live with their guilt, let them be uncomfortable. And if you're a white person who knows what happened, and you have parents who don't understand what black people say when they say that they need reparations, that what happened to them was terribly wrong and they're still living with the effects, you should teach them on why that actually is the way it is. It's not because we are happy about it. We are not doing it for fun. It's because it had a very big effect on who we are today. So I hope you've learned something today. I hope you have enjoyed today's content and you have felt something from it, whether good or bad. If you felt something, it means you're human. So I hope to see you in the next video. I would also like for you to comment so I can hear what you have to say. Do you agree with the content I've done, or do you disagree with some of the pointers that I've given or the people in the videos have given? I'd like to talk to you and converse with you in the comments. If you did like this video, kindly do consider subscribing, sharing and liking. And I hope to see you in the next video. Goodbye.